Hello, my name's Rose Davidson from rosedavidson.com. Talking with the Experts is about all things business, by business owners, for business owners, and you can find it on all good podcasting platforms and on YouTube. And today my guest is Marlene Schmidt, and Marlene is from Hervey Bay in Australia, and her business is Insight Spending Planners. And Marlene is an expert money management coach, certified spending planner, and the founder of Insight Spending Planners. Drawing on over 20 years' experience in managing her own finances successfully using spending plans, which is a smarter system of budgeting that actually works. And I need to perhaps get some tips from Marlene about that. She works online teaching other women how to take control of their finances, achieve their goals, and eliminate money stress. She specialises in helping women with service-based businesses to manage their personal and business finance, align their spending with their values and priorities, and grow profitable and sustainable businesses. Welcome, Marlene. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you, Rose, and thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit about, why women would need this service.
Okay. I guess I chose to work with women essentially because I'm a woman and also because often in relationships, the woman is the one who handles the day-to-day management of the money. So, the paying of the bills and all that sort of thing. So I thought it was logical to actually focus in and niche down to women. And then subsequently, I actually niched even further to women in business, particularly service-based business, because that's the nature of my business. So I'm aware of the challenges that presents, and particularly with the financial side of business. It's one thing, I guess, to have a bookkeeper or an accountant, but if you're not across the day-to-day movement of money in and out of the business, you can get into real trouble. And the other thing that I think women in business tend to struggle with is separating their personal money from their business money. So I help with that as well. I think often women in business, they start out and it's a side hustle perhaps, and they're still working. So differentiating the difference between the business finances and their personal can be a challenge.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. So, what processes can they put in place to keep those separate?
Well, the big mistake I think that women make initially is that they don't have a separate bank account for their business. That's really the first step. For one thing, it's sort of, I guess it's a bit of a mindset issue, really. It establishes that the business is an entity separate from you. And for sole traders, anyway, it doesn't need to be a dedicated business account as, the bank would recommend. It can be any bank account as long as it's a separate bank account where the charges and the expenses of the business are deducted from. And that's really the first step. And then the second thing would be to calculate exactly how much the business needs to earn to cover the business expenses. And that really helps with working out the revenue target for your business, because obviously, if you're going to stay afloat, you need to be able to cover your expenses and then some, ultimately to pay yourself and pay taxes. And thirdly, I think you should treat your business account as hands-off in terms of personal spending. So I like to think of it as if it were, say, your former employer's bank account. You wouldn't go buying the groceries from your employer's bank account. So, don't do it to your own business. And I mean, in some situations you may need to, you might be out at the supermarket and you've forgotten to take your personal debit card with you. You could use your business debit card, but then you need to identify it in the business as owner drawings, which is basically like a payment to you. And the other thing that I find women in business do is that they're always injecting funds, personal funds, into the business, especially in the startup stages. And I'd really encourage you to at least keep a record of that, so that when the business picks up steam and is bringing in a decent income, you can actually pay yourself back. So it's a bit like you're giving a loan to the business, from your personal funds. And my final point on that is start paying yourself. It's a great habit to get into. And it doesn't really matter how much. The amount is not as important as the habit. So, pick once a month, once a fortnight, whatever it is, and make a regular payment from the business to you. And that way you've set the habit in place, and then you can gradually increase the amount over time as the business grows.
Yeah.
Yes, so that's my tips around the personal and the business side of money.
Tips. Absolutely great tips. Now, for businesses that are registered for GST and have, registered themselves to collect the GST, which I know is not necessary unless you're earning like squillions of dollars, which, a lot of businesses don't start doing that for, a very long time. Do you advocate having a separate account for GST?
Yes. Actually, when I set up spending plans, which is, perhaps I'll talk about that a bit later, but the equivalent of a budget for your business. So I do a spending plan for the personal finances first, and then we do one for the business. And in that, we set up separate buckets, if you like, of money for the business, and they would be for tax, for GST, for profit, and for superannuation, so that every time income comes into the business, you're actually making allocations and shifting funds into these separate buckets, so that come, your BAS due date or tax time, there's not a mad panic looking for the money. You've got the money set aside already and, petitioned away, so that you're not accidentally spending it on something else along the way. Yeah. So absolutely. Separate buckets for those.
So tell me how these spending planners work, Marlene.
Okay, well, you're probably familiar with a regular form of budgeting where you look at your income and you deduct all of your expenses from your income, and hopefully you have enough income to cover all of your expenses. Now, a spending plan is different in that we start with your expenses. So when I work with my clients, I don't need to know their income because we capture all the information about all of their spending. And I have some very clever software that we use, and we input all of that data into the software. And the software then tells you how much income you need to cover all of those expenses. So I guess it's a reverse engineering sort of thing to budgeting. And then the beauty of a spending plan is it then forecasts for you your future. So it's like having a bank statement in advance, if you like. So it can show you in the future where you may actually strike trouble and not have enough funds for a particular bill. And when you have advance warning of that, you can be proactive and do something about that before it hits you. Because it's all very well to say, a good example is, say you've got your annual rates bill on your home and you calculate that out, that you would need to set aside whatever it is, say it's $70 a week to cover your rates. But the trouble is, the rates, whenever you start, it's never going to be, or it's highly unlikely it's going to be 12 months before your rates bill hits. So you might have only saved 6 months and then the rate bill arrives and you haven't got enough. So it's the timing of the bills that's really important, because if we go ahead and start putting aside money for various things, we're going to always strike an issue where we don't have the money at the time it's needed. So a spending plan gets around all that sort of issue with the timing of bills, and you really only have to ensure that you have the amount of money in your account that the spending plan says you need on a particular day, and you're fine. So really monitoring and tracking your progress is really simple as well. You don't need to record everything you spend and all that sort of stuff and sit down and see whether or not, you know, you've met budget, as you would the old-fashioned way of budgeting.
Yeah. So this software, so is it managed by you, or is it on-sold to the client?
No, it's a separate organisation. It's actually, I'm a member of the Spending Planners Institute, and that's our body of certification, if you like, and they manage the software. So it's web-based software, so you can access it from anywhere. And I set my clients up on the software, teach them how to use it, and then they pay the subscription directly to the supplier. So it's an ongoing subscription, but it's only $10 a month. So
that's
I think that's pretty good value for.
What is it to actually register to use the software?
That's it. It's $10 a month.
Oh wow, that's amazing. That's a reasonable cost to know where your money's going.
That's right. That's right. And you know, there's no other way, I guess, to access the software without working with a spending planner. And that's because it's not the sort of thing that you can just jump on and teach yourself. So I like to, you know, I have a number of programs where I work with people from anywhere to 4 weeks to 6 months to get them, you know, up and running. And I guess embedding those new habits, it always takes time to change money habits and to also change mindset around money as well.
Yeah, I know a couple of other people that are using spending planners as well, and they're based in Adelaide. So, and I've always thought about looking into it, but I thought it was quite expensive. But yeah, now that you've said that, I might look into it again. But yeah, it sounds like it's beneficial for business and for personal.
That's right, and for I guess that interplay between the two, because when we do the personal spending plan, it tells you how much income you need, obviously, to fund your lifestyle. So that then helps you decide how much your business needs to pay you. So, you know, if you're in a relationship, your partner might be covering part of the household costs, but you may have a desire to contribute to that. So it really helps, because a lot of women, I guess, they go into business looking to replace the income that they had in a job. And that's fine, but unless they've done the work and found out how much they actually need, they may not actually need to replace that income from the job. But when you get clarity around your numbers, that really helps make those decisions about, all right, do I want a six-figure business, and do I need a six-figure business? Perhaps not. Yeah.
It's interesting that I'm an advocate for domestic violence survivors, and it's probably something that people who are wanting to escape from a situation, this would be an opportunity for them to, especially if they've been abused financially, to get themselves sorted when they escape from that relationship.
Oh, absolutely. And it's all too common, I think, perhaps not as much now as it was years ago, when women were generally in the home and they might have been given an allowance, to manage the household with. But even it still persists, and more so in particular cultures even today. And I think to give women that sense of control, that sense of clarity about where they stand and how much money they actually need, it can be really empowering, and it really can give them, I guess, the peace of mind perhaps to take that step to, leave a relationship that's, not working because of that, financial and,
emotional
abuse. Yeah.
Yeah, good advice.
Yeah.
Actually, I might get you to come on our Healing Through Love show, and because we have a show that helps and supports survivors, and I think your what we've discussed here today would be of great benefit to those that are a bit challenged in that situation. So
yeah, I'd love to do that. That'd be great.
That would be great. All right, well, I'll send you details afterwards.
Okay, thanks.
I'm killing two birds with one stone. All right. So, any words that you'd like to share with our audience about, how to go about, having a great spending plan, and how, they could better manage their money?
Yeah, I think the first thing that people should do is really get a handle on what their expenses actually are, and where all their money is going currently. I take my clients through quite a detailed process of identifying exactly what their bills are, when they're due, how much they are, and on top of that, all of the other spending that we do. I mean, a lot of it's the little expenses that tend to add up over time and cause issues. And I think it's really a good exercise to get really clear about where your money is going currently, because without that, you need that starting point to work from. It's better like a GPS. I like to think of it like a GPS. So if you don't know where you are, you don't know where you can go or where you're going. The first thing a GPS does is identify, your location. So I like to think of it the same way. And I think to take a critical look at where you're spending money on things that are perhaps wants rather than needs, and get really clear about why you want more money. Most people you ask, they just want more, but they have these vague dreams, I guess, and ideas about what they would do with that money, but you need to get really specific about it. So, if you want peace of mind, that might mean you want to be debt-free. So then we need to translate that into specific goals and dates. So, I have $5,000 in credit card debt. I want to pay that off by whatever the date is. Then we calculate how much they would need to pay off per month to achieve that goal. And that way, when they work with me, I build all that into their spending plan. But even if you don't work with me, you should still be translating those dreams and goals into concrete steps that you can take to get you there eventually. And just start small. Pick the one big thing that you'd like to achieve and start working on that. There's no need to overwhelm yourself with, trying to do everything at once. But, baby steps, I always say.
Yeah, absolutely. Because money is, my husband reckons it's made flat to stack, and I reckon it's made round to go round. So
it is, and it definitely, the flow is a big thing. It's, the energy around money is a big thing too. It's, some people tend to hoard it up. Others tend to spend it all. But I think there has to be a balance between, the money coming in and the money going out. And that's the nature of how it should work. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. So where can they find you, Marlene?
Okay, you can find me on Facebook, Insight Spending Planners, my website, which is insightspendingplanners.com. And I have a number of freebies, and you might want to post the link to those in the notes, Rose. There's a free money personality quiz, which is really useful to sort of work out how your money personality affects the way you deal with money. And self-awareness is a really big thing. So that can help there. At the moment, I've got a free training there that I ran live last week. And it's how to have more money without increasing your income. So that one might be...
I think I saw that, yeah.
Yeah, that one might be useful, and it goes in a bit more depth, with a lot of the things that we've talked about today. So, yeah. And I'm always happy to have a chat with anyone, no obligation, free chat, to see how I might be able to help.
Oh, wonderful. All right. Well, I'll remember to post those links in the notes, and I will contact you about getting on the show.
That'd be great. Thank you,
All right,
Rose.
Marlene. Thank you so much for your time today.
You're very welcome. Thanks for the opportunity. You have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Talking with the experts.